Hello, my name is Tess McBurney, and I'm the Atlantic Bat Conservation Project Technician with the Canadian Wildlife Health Cooperative Atlantic Region. And today we're going to go over how to upload your mobile transect acoustic data to the anybat website. So I have this screen up here just to remind you, we will be using some metadata, a metadata file that you will have to already have downloaded. Now you should already have downloaded this file in the processing data video. So you shouldn't have to download it again, but in case you can't find that file or you miss that step, you will need to download the anybat mobile meta output only KPro file for use in this video. Okay. So again, this video is about uploading data to the anybat website. So all of our mobile transect data have already been manually identified. So that is done. So now we're just ready to upload all of the manual IDs and all of the other data to the anybat website. So we can start by opening up our kaleidoscope converter window. So again, to do this, you can just open, double click on the kaleidoscope icon on your desktop. Okay, and first we need to change our input directory. So click on Browse, and in your process data folder for your anybat data for that year, so we are in anybat acoustics 2020 process data, you are going to click the folder that contains all of your mobile transect data. So I only have one mobile transect that was conducted this year, but you may have multiple transects within this mobile transect folder. And so make sure you select the overarching transect data, even if you have more than one transect. So I'm going to select that folder. And then under output directory, I am going to again go to process data in our anybat folder for this year, and I'm going to select the mobile transect metadata folder. And these folders should have already been created when you transferred the data. So the mobile transect metadata folder, I'm going to select that folder for my output. Then in this drop down here, you are going to select that file that you downloaded from the anybat website. So if you haven't used that file before, you will have to select add or replace a project form, and then select the location where you downloaded that file on your computer. Okay, so I downloaded that file and I keep it in this folder here. So again, we want the anybat mobile meta output only KPro. And once you select that file, you can select open. I already have that file selected, so I'm going to click cancel. But I can just, once I've already used it before, I can just select it from the drop down here. So I want the mobile meta output only KPro. Okay, now this next step is important, but you are going to want to make sure that you do not have either the wave or the zero cross file boxes checked. If these boxes are selected, when you process the files, you are going to duplicate the files you have already created when you first process the files. And you don't want to do this. You already have the files processed. You have the manual IDs saved within the files. So you don't want to create duplicate files. So if these boxes are checked, make sure you uncheck them so they are empty before you proceed to the next step, which is to select the process files button on the bottom right. Okay, so then we can process our files. Some of our settings were changed, so we can just select OK. And you can see here that it automatically opens the first file for us. If you have the Pro version of software, it will also open your results table. We do not need to use these right now. As you can see, the manual IDs have already been populated, so we can just close those. So let's see what files have been created. So I'm just going to go back into that mobile transect metadata folder. Okay, so you can see that the software has created some new files for us. So you can see that there are not any acoustic files in this folder. Files, so that is correct. You don't have to worry about that. No acoustic files. So if you have the free version of Kaleidoscope software, you will have a log.txt file. Again, this file keeps a record of each step of the file processing and can be used for diagnostics if an error occurs. You will also have another settings.ini file, which keeps a record of the settings used in the Kaleidoscope converter window during data processing. So if you ever want to reload those settings, you just open your Kaleidoscope converter window, go to File, Load Settings, and you can select that settings.ini file and then select Open, and that will automatically reopen all those settings for you in the Kaleidoscope converter window. Okay. We also have a gps.csv. That is because in the Kaleidoscope converter window, we left the GPS option on to extract GPS to CSV. If you don't want to create another GPS file, you can disable that function. So extract GPS disabled, but we created another GPS file. We also have the meta.csv. And this file will contain all of the metadata that were entered in the anybat metadata form in the Kaleidoscope converter window. And it will also provide a list of all the files recorded within the mobile transects that were conducted. And the manual ID for each file will be added here. So this is if you're using the free version of software. Those would be the files that you would have. And just to note that in the guide, at this point, we began referring to this meta.csv as metadata.csv to distinguish it from the meta.csv file that was created when you first process the files. So that's just to help distinguish between those two files, but the actual name is meta.csv. So if you are using the guide and following through using the guide, just keep that in mind. So if you are using the pro version of Kaleidoscope software, you will also have a batch.wdb file created as well. This file is used to upload metadata to a database, but it is not used for uploading data to the anybat database, so we will not be using that file. You don't have to worry about using it. Okay, so let's have a look at our meta.csv. Okay, so you can see here that all of the data that we put into that metadata form in Kaleidoscope is included within this file. Okay. And at this point, we also want to make sure that our manual IDs have been included, that they are now populated. And you can see that our manual ID, all of our manual IDs are now populated in this file, so that's great. You may want to check to make sure that they're filled in correctly, so you can always check with your original id.csvs to ensure that they are correct. So just a note here, this meta.csv will include the data from all of your mobile transects. So if you did conduct more than one mobile transect, the data from all of them will be in this file. So just keep that in mind when you are going through and making sure all of the data are correct. Okay, so you can see though that the auto ID column did not automatically populate. So I can show you now how to sort the data in case you do need to copy and paste any data into this data sheet that's missing. Like for example, if you have the pro version of software and some of the manual IDs are missing, you may want to copy and paste data over from your original id.csvs. If you are using the free version of software, you will actually have to open the files and check what your manual ID was in the identification box and manually type it into the manual ID column here. So I can show you how to do that first. So if you're using the free version of software and this audio recording was missing its manual ID, you'd have to go back and open that file in Kaleidoscope. So back to your process data, your mobile transect folder, and then the date. And then we're looking for, and that should be a noise file. So let's go in here. And we're looking for 221046. Okay, so that's that file there. So we need to open that file. So you can see in the identification box, I manually identified this file as noise. So if that was missing, then in the meta.csv column, you would have to manually type in noise into that row. Okay. If you're working with the pro version of software, you can actually use the id.csv. So I can show you how to do that. So go back to your mobile transect and the date you want for whatever data are missing. You'd want to pick the correct transect if you have multiple transects, because remember, these id.csvs are transect specific. They do not contain the data for all of the transects together. Okay, and then you will want to make sure that your two spreadsheets are sorted identically to make sure that you are cross-referencing the right data. So you can select all of your data, Control All, or Control A, I should say, or you can just put your cursor in the top left box like this, and you will go to Sort and Filter, Custom Sort, and then it will automatically select all your data. And then you'll select Sort by audio recording name, cell values A to Z, and OK. Okay. And then let's sort our id.csv the same way. So Control A, custom sort, sort by, and now you'll select the in file for the id.csv. Okay. So our first file here is 220622, and our meta.csv 220622, so they're the same. The next one's 220734, 220734. Okay, so you'll want to make sure, just double check that the files are sorted identically, and then you can always copy and paste your manual IDs from this column and put them into your meta.csv if any of those data are missing. Right now I'm going to copy the auto ID column because that is missing in our meta.csv sorted properly. So auto ID, I'm just going to copy and paste that in there and save. Okay, I was just checking a few more files to make sure everything's sorted properly, but that, so we can save that. Okay. So we can close our id.csv now because we are done with that. So you can see here that our latitude and our longitude columns have automatically populated. And that is because we used a GPS unit with our detector when we conducted our survey. So if you used a GPS unit, you would have to check the manual for that specific unit to find out how to download the location file. It's typically in the form of a text file with a column for date, time, latitude, and longitude. And then you would have to manually enter those coordinates into this meta.csv. So you would have to type them in or copy and paste them, whatever is easiest. So you can do that if you've used a GPS unit with your survey. The reason our columns automatically populated is we actually used the Wildlife Acoustics GPS unit that plugs right into our detector. So if you have that unit, these columns should automatically populate, although you can see we are missing coordinates for this file. So ideally, we would have to go back and see if we can find what the coordinates are for that specific file. And we could do that by cross-referencing the times of the recording. So we would have to cross-reference using the time of the recording. So you can actually find that by looking at the file name itself. So we can see that this file was recorded at 23:05:28, so 11:05:28 seconds. So we could do that, and then we could cross-reference that with the GPS information to see what our coordinate was at that exact time. And by doing that, we would be able to add those coordinates to this file. So that's a little more time consuming to do it that way. I'm actually going to show you how you can include your coordinates with with your data sheet without using a GPS unit. So the anybat website now has a tool you can use that if you don't have a GPS for your mobile transects, you can add your route in. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So if you do not have a GPS and you want to use the transect drawing tool, you will actually have to make sure that your latitude and longitude columns are empty. So I'm going to clear the contents in those columns, and the grit cell column also needs to be empty. And that is why I left it blank, is because I plan to draw the route. So you'll want to make sure that those columns do not have values in them, but make sure that the column header is still there. So make sure that the title of the column is left, but just that you don't have any data within those columns. And I will show you how to do that. Okay. So let's draw our transect route now. Okay, so we're going to minimize this and we're going to go to the nabat website. So nabatmonitoring.org, and we're going to log in using the partner portal button on the top right. Log in, top right. Log in with Sciencebase. Okay, projects. And then on the projects page, you're going to choose the project for which you conducted your mobile transect. So that is this project for us. Okay, so you can see our transect has already been drawn in here. So I'm just going to delete that transect so I can draw it again. Okay, and doing that, I can select the red delete button. And there, that should have deleted our route. So we do get this alert now that some survey details are incomplete, and that is because I deleted the route and we already have past transects on this website. Okay, so you can now draw your route on this screen here. So I am under details under our project. Okay, and so to draw the route, you are going to select this little line button on the left of the image, or on the left of the map, I should say. Okay, so I'm going to click on that. Okay, and I can start drawing my line. So you can't see this, but on my other computer screen, I have the image of my mobile transect pulled up so I can follow that as I draw. I would recommend doing that, at least know what the coordinates are as you're drawing so you can kind of follow along. Or if you know your route really well, you can just draw it from memory, but I want to make it sure that I draw our route as perfectly as I can. So I have the image of our map next to me so I can do that as I go. Okay. I'm just going to cancel because I clicked by accident. Okay, so you can zoom in by scrolling with your mouse. So either zoom in or zoom out, or you can hit the plus and minus button on the top left if that's easier. Again, I'm going to click cancel because as soon as you place your mouse and click on the screen, it will create your first point, and I don't want my first point to be there. So let's try again. Okay. So my first point is going to be right here. This is where my transect starts. And the most important thing to remember is you have to draw the transect in the right direction. So where we choose our starting line, or where we start our transect, that needs to be where you start your transect as well, because it's going to automatically, based on the time of your files, pinpoint where that is in your transect. So if you draw your transect backwards, starting with the end of your transect first, and you recorded a bat 4 minutes into your transect, it's going to think that you recorded the bat 4 minutes from the end of your transect, not the beginning. And so it is very important that you draw it in the right direction, okay? So this is where we started our transect. So I'm just going to left click. I'm going to left click on my mouse to place my first point. Okay, so you can see it shows up as a square. And now I'm connected to this square. So you can see the line, the blue dots come out from that square. So I'm tied down. If I want to remove that first square, I can click cancel. Okay, and then click the line image on the left again. So let's do that again, okay? And then the lines have to be straight. So you're going to have to do small lines depending on your route. So I'm going to click here. If I made a mistake and I wanted to delete just that last point, I can click that on the left here, delete last point, and then I go back to the point before that. So that can be useful. Okay. So now I'm just going to draw out our route. So it does take a little time to try to get it as precise as possible. Okay, so this should be our last point here. So once your route is drawn to your satisfaction, you can select the Finish button on the left. Okay. So now you have to enter a little more information. So you need to select a name for your route. So you'll select the green button, Edit button in the bottom right. And for your location name, you need to ensure that it is the same name in your meta.csv spreadsheet. So my meta.csv spreadsheet, my location name I had as root. So I need to make sure that the name here is root. And that is so when the data are uploaded, the files will automatically become associated with this transect that we just drew. So the description, if you want, you can leave as anybat survey location, or you can add a different description if you want. And then survey type, it's a transect route, so select that, and then select the green Save button. Okay. So that is how you draw a route using the tool on the nabat website. So that's a handy little tool if you do not have a GPS. If you are using a GPS during your transect, likely the GPS points will be a little more accurate than they will be using this tool. But if you don't have a GPS, this is a really great tool to use to be able to visualize where you recorded a bat during your mobile transect. So if you ever need to edit or delete a route, you just need to click on it on this map and then edit the green button or delete the red button on the left. Okay. So it's best if possible to draw your transect before you upload your data to the anybat website, because otherwise the files may not associate with the drawn route. So it's best to draw your route first if possible to prevent possible errors when you're uploading the data. So we are just about ready to upload the data. So I'm just going to save and close this file. Okay, the last thing we need to do before we upload our data to the nabat website is rename our meta.csv file with a descriptive and original name to ensure that no one else will upload a file with the same name. Because if two files are uploaded to the website with the same name, the other file can overwrite the original file and we would lose our data. So we really want to make sure that we select a name that no one else is going to select. So in our process data, mobile transect metadata folder, we're going to rename our meta.csv. And I like to use our organization name because I know we are the only individuals within our organization uploading data to the anybat website. And we only have mobile transects at this one grid cell in this year. So this would be the only file named in this way. So I feel comfortable naming it that. Great, so make sure that your file is named. And then we are ready to upload our data to the anybat website. So on our anybat website projects page, we're going to select upload survey data in the top right, and then mobile acoustic transect from the dropdown. And then we're going to select the full metadata button on the bottom right. And then we are going to select that meta.csv file that we just renamed. So in our process data, our mobile transect metadata, and our renamed meta.csv file, and open. Okay, so this opens our bulk upload table. So this table will assess the first 300 rows of data for errors, which we can see in the bottom here. We only have 26 rows of data for our mobile transects, but we have 0 errors. It will also check to make sure that the column titles match, which all of our column titles do. It will tell you if you're missing any required columns. And we have 2 extra columns. So we have 2 columns that in our spreadsheet that aren't used in the current metadata spreadsheet for anybat. So it's telling us, you can see this little yellow exclamation mark and a triangle. It's telling us that these columns are no longer used. So I'm actually going to delete those from our spreadsheet before I upload the data because I anticipate there possibly being errors with those. So if you do have any errors in these columns, it's good to fix them before you upload the data, so you're not having to re-upload the data at a later point once you fix those errors. If errors do show up, they show up in red in this table. So the row where there's an error or the space in the table will be highlighted in red. And often it's just a formatting issue. So if you select the drop down at the top of the column, it will actually give you a list of acceptable options for that column. So that can be helpful, and that will tell you where you may have a formatting error. So I'm just going to delete those columns before I upload the rest of the data. So it was this column it didn't like, so I'm just going to delete it, and then broad habitat type. I'm going to resave that spreadsheet, and I'm just going to upload the data again. Let's see if it's a little happier this time. Okay, so now we have 0 extra columns, so that's good. It may not have caused an issue with the website, but I always anticipate there may be being issues, so I like to get ahead of them so I'm not having to re-upload data multiple times. So now everything here looks good, so we can select the turquoise submit button in the bottom right. So on this tab, we can see the bulk upload status there. So our survey just showed up. You can see in the top row, it is a mobile acoustic survey, and there is our renamed meta.csv spreadsheet. And you can see so far 0 rows have been processed. So it's currently in the status of processing. So we just have to wait until all of the rows are processed. Okay, so it's done. So it did actually find one error, which you can see here in errors found. So if I click on that hyperlink, it's going to download a new spreadsheet for me that will highlight that error. So let's click on that. Okay, and we're going to open that spreadsheet with the error. Okay, so this is not showing all of our data. This is just showing us where the error is. So if you scroll to the end of the spreadsheet, you will see that there is a column for row number. So in our meta.csv, that is the row where the error is. And then it will also have a column for what the error is. So it'll actually tell you what the error is here. So here the audio recording time is not within the start and end times of our survey. So let's see. Okay, so technically that pass was recorded, or that file was recorded 19 seconds after what I had recorded for the end of our survey. And I don't know the exact seconds of our survey. I just record the minutes. So that was likely recorded during our survey. I just need to go in and change the seconds to make sure that file is included. So I can close this error spreadsheet. You don't need to save it. Let's open our renamed meta.csv. So our error was in row 27, so our last row. Okay. And it is because we didn't specify the seconds. To make sure that that file is included. And it is a noise file, so if it wasn't included, it wouldn't be problematic in terms of what data the anybat website uses, because it really is just, it's more looking for the actual bat files than the noise files. It would be looking for the bat files to use in their analyses. But just for accuracy, we will include that file. So, okay, so I've now changed the survey time by 30 seconds and saved it. So now this last file should be included within that window. Okay, so I saved it, or I need to save it. Make sure you save. Okay. Okay, so now we need to undo the data that we uploaded where there was an error. So click on the gray undo button and undo this upload. Okay, so now it has undone that upload and we need to re-upload that spreadsheet. So again, upload survey data, mobile acoustic transect, full metadata. Let's select our meta.csv again. 0 errors, submit. Okay, so now the file has stopped processing and there are 0 errors, so great. Hopefully that means everything uploaded properly. So if we go over to the details tab, we can select our grit cell that we conducted the survey in. And under that, if we select the mobile acoustic tab, our route, the survey with our name, which we called route, should be included there. So the date is correct. So the date automatically populates July 10th, 2020. So we can click on that. Wow. Okay. So this image is showing us our route, which you can see here. So these different circles here on the route, if you hover your mouse over it, you can see those are each a recording. So a file that was recorded. So this one was noise. You can see the auto ID and the manual ID. You can see the file name, recording time. So that's really useful. You can zoom in on that as well. So we can hopefully space those dots out a little more. Let's see if we can actually find a bat pass because we recorded a lot of noise on this transect. Okay, so we recorded a bat in here. That's interesting. Was manual ID'd as Milu or Little Brown Myotis. This one as well. So that's pretty interesting to be able to see where exactly on your transect you recorded bats. So that's a useful tool. If we keep scrolling down, we also have these tabs here now. So let's go under deployment details. And this has all of your survey information, mostly about location, but also about detector type. So it's basically how you deployed your detector. So yeah, like the detectors you use, the microphones you use, and the placement. So to edit that, you can just select the green edit button on the right, and then you can add information if maybe you didn't include some of these data in the spreadsheet or in the metadata form in Kaleidoscope. You can now include it here and then just hit the green save button to save that information. So all of the location information really would be up here. So if you need to edit that, again, select the green edit button, and then you can edit some of those features. Or if you have to edit your transect, you can do that in here using the transect drawing tool. If you drew the transect, or if you want to draw a transect, you can do that in this space here. And then you can click the green save button. Okay, then you can go down to the echolocation measurements tab. And this is going to give you a summary of your acoustic files. So you can see here at the top on the right, you get a little table. So it's basically telling you at the top how many acoustic files you had, and then it's letting you know how many of each species you manually ID'd and how many you auto ID'd. So that's an interesting comparison. These pie charts show your species by auto ID and by manual ID. So again, an interesting difference. There aren't many files within our survey, so it makes it a little harder to look at. The deployment effort graph here just shows you deployment effort by monitoring night, because our transect takes place over the course of one night. All of our deployment effort was on that one night, which makes sense. Then if you scroll down, you can see your audio recording files, your auto ID, and your manual ID. Okay. Below that, you have your raw auto ID output tab. So this is where you can upload any other files you want to have included with these data. So like your original meta.csv output, or if you had any field sheets that you had and then you scanned on the scanned onto the computer and you wanted to include those, you can add those here. So just click on the upload raw auto ID files on the right, and then the blue select files, and process data, and then mobile transect, and then the date for this tab. And I'm going to include our original id.csv. So I'm renaming it with an original name to make sure that it isn't confused with any other files that may be uploaded to the website. So I'm giving it I'm naming it after the root name or the name that we gave to the transect. So root id.csv. And I'm also going to upload the meta.csv. You can also add the year if you want as well to make sure that you're not overwriting CSVs from another year. Okay, so I'm going to select those and then open, and then I can upload. And when they're done, you can just hit the X at the top right to close. And you can see both of those files are now here. The next tab down is the Images tab. This is where you can include your deployment images. I would always recommend taking images of your setup, and that way if something goes wrong or something worked really well, you can recreate that setup in the next year. And it can also give information about maybe some of the habitat for your survey, not so much for the transects, but a little bit. So I'm going to upload our deployment images here. So click on the Upload Deployment Images button, then select Files. And then select your files and then select Open and then Upload. There we go. Now all of our image files have been uploaded. And this way, anyone else on your project can access all of these files and information. So if one of your colleagues are on the website and are looking for your deployment setup or your original spreadsheet, then the information is all stored right here on the website and can be downloaded. So that can be really useful as well. So I would also recommend uploading your acoustic files directly to the anybat website, because that way you are backing up your files and it does enable other individuals working on this project to access the files if they need to. So scroll to the top of the page and select the teal Upload Audio Recordings button, and then select Files. And then Process Data, Mobile Transect, July. So I'm going to select this survey, July 10th. So you will have to go into each separate folder to include those files. So I'm going to include all the noise files, and then I'm going to go back and select the non-noise files here. I'm going to open. And then once you have all your files selected from that site, you can hit the green upload button. And I would only recommend trying to upload small amounts of data at a time, because it can take a while to upload these acoustic files. So just keep that in mind. For our survey, though, for our mobile transect, we don't usually have a large number of files, so it's usually pretty quick. So now it's done and we can close that. And now if you scroll down to your echolocation measurements tab, just reopen it, you can see now that the audio recording titles are blue hyperlinks. So if you click on that, you can actually download the audio recording file. And so anyone on your project that you give permission to access these files can do that, and they can open it on their computer in Kaleidoscope, and they can have a look at that file. And you can see, because I included my process files, my manual identification is saved in that file. So they can see my manual identification and they can see the file. So that can be pretty useful. Okay, so that is how you upload your mobile transect data to the anybat website. I hope you found that helpful.